Bell & Ross have dropped a new watch, and it is unlike anything else we've seen so far from the brand. I've had this in for a review for over a week now, and there's a lot I want to talk about. So let's talk about it. When we think of Bell & Ross, we tend to think of the classic instrument like the BR01, the BR03, and the more recent BR05, which has a bit more modern everyday styling. But there's another kind of an extreme side to the brand that isn't talked about as much, and that is their horology side, their concepts, their in-house design calipers, their higher complications. If the classic Bell & Ross are like Seiko, then these horology concept pieces are like the Grand Seiko Godo Constant Tourbillon. They're pushing the brand to another extreme, to another level. And this is very important to understand because when we look at both of these sides, only then we can understand the brand. It is not just staying in that $4,000 to $5,000 region. You have these concept pieces at around $100,000. And that's where the exciting stuff happens. This is the commercial side. For this to happen, you need to do a lot of this. But this watch right here, this is special. Now, getting this watch wasn't easy because there are only like 500 pieces, but it is thanks to you guys that I'm able to get hands-on with these watches and show them to you. So thanks again for that. And speaking of which, 90% of you guys haven't subscribed yet. So if you could just take a second and hit that subscribe button, I'd really appreciate it. So what's the fuss about? What makes this Bell & Ross exciting? My understanding of Bell & Ross has been quite limited. I've seen what they offer at the entry level, and I've seen few of their extreme high-end pieces. I've never really focused on their mid-range offerings, and this is part of that. When you first look at it, it looks like it is part of the high-end concept pieces, but it's actually a lot cheaper than those. Now, I'll talk about the price in a minute, along with 3 things I really love about the watch. But first, let's look at the specs. The watch comes in a 42 by 43.7 millimeter square case. The case is made out of black ceramic with diamond powder finish, which gives an additional layer of protection, along with a matte texture. Also, having a ceramic case means that the watch is lighter and tougher than if it were made of steel. It's not an easy material to shape, which makes it even more impressive that they managed to create such a well-finished, angular, faceted case. It has a height of 15 millimeters, which wears surprisingly slim because part of the thickness is due to the boxed sapphire crystal. You also get 50 meters of water resistance and a black rubber strap that feels like it can practically withstand anything you throw at it. Now, unlike the classic Bell & Ross watches where the emphasis is on the legibility of the dial, that is not the case here. This is taking a tool watch form factor and making it go supersonic. This is not a tool watch. This is a concept where the star of the show is the movement. While the majority of the indices, which are practically just single black lines, seem to be painted on the crystal along with the brand logo, there are a few markers etched onto the bridges. You don't get a seconds hand, but just loomed hour and minute hands along with a balance wheel on the front side of the movement, which shows that the watch is running. Skeletonization. Here's how I understand it. You either have brands on the lower end where they skeletonize the dial and expose a third-party base caliber. Now, this is not necessarily a bad thing. There's still a market for that. A lot of people, when they start getting into mechanical watches, they kind of transcend quartz watches. This is where mechanics of a movement is kind of the pull that brings them into these watches. This is not where people necessarily care about spending thousands of dollars on extremely well-finished bespoke calibers. On the higher end, you have brands creating in-house concept calibers and skeletonizing them to show off everything that's happening inside. And those can cost a lot of money, which is why many collectors are not a fan of skeletonized watches. Because the watches that they can afford, they don't really need to see the movement on both sides. An exhibition case back is more than enough for that. They know it's a good movement, it's reliable, it's not the best finishing, but it does the job. So that's good enough. They don't need to be looking at it all the time. And that is where this watch is different. This is not a $50,000 watch. This is a $13,000 watch with a bespoke in-house design caliber made only for this watch, which is limited to just 500 pieces. You won't find too many brands do this level of watchmaking for the price. The movement was manufactured in collaboration with Concepto, who specializes in producing bespoke calibers for high-end brands. And that's why when you get up close to the watch, you start to see where your money goes. I mean, just look at that perfect bead blasted finishing on the bridges, the angular facets, the polished beveling. The attention to detail is absolutely mind-blowing. Performance-wise, the automatic BR383 caliber beats at a high frequency of 4 Hz and gives you 48 hours of power reserve. The watch comes on the iconic rubber strap, which integrates incredibly well with the form factor of the case. Now let's talk about the 3 reasons why I find this watch so cool. And I think you'll agree. It is an experimental design. This watch makes the brand independent in my eyes. Now, Chanel does own a small share in the company, but then again, they also own shares of FP Journe, so that's fine. But I love the fact that while the brand has its heritage, its classic, iconic designs, they're not afraid to get out of their comfort zones and do something completely different, therefore acting like independent brands. This is skeletonization done right. A lot of brands tend to either over-decorate their movements when skeletonizing them, making them far too dressy, whereas others will show off a completely undecorated movement, which a lot of collectors don't like. This does it well, and is completely on theme of the whole concept of the watch. And lastly, it wears surprisingly well for a larger watch. I'm not a fan of big watches, and this is still far too big for me. But if you see anyone with a slightly larger wrist wear a Bell & Ross on a rubber strap, it looks so damn cool. Almost like how the Octo Finissimo wears. Personally, I love this watch. It's not for me, but it helps me to understand this brand much more than I did. But let me know in the comments, what do you think about this new Cyber Ceramic? I'll link the watch down in the description so you can check it out for yourself. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.